morning meeting, and we'll go right to roll call, please.
Commissioner Kramer,
Present.
Commissioner O'Rourke,
Present.
Commissioner Rexroth,
Present.
Chairman Russell,
Here.
Commissioner Ross,
Present.
Commissioner Allgaier,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner, present, all present.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, everybody, for coming today. Looking now for approval of the agenda is either presented or amended.
I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support. All those in support of it?
I'm gonna just since we just passed something a couple minutes or an hour ago, it doesn't, this agenda was already approved, so public comment can be about anything, or it has to be agenda specific.
I don't think we've implemented any changes.
Published it yet.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Okay, so all those in support of the motion to approve the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. This time, we want to thank you for coming and open the floor to any public comment. If you'd like to make public comment, please raise your hand and come forward and speak loudly, and if you would, acknowledge your name. Anybody like to make public comments? Yes.
Hi. Susan Whedon from Cedar, Centerville Township. Happy New Year.
What is your name?
Susan Whedon, WHEADON. Happy New Year, and thank you so much for all you have accomplished for our beautiful county. Knowing many of you personally, I'm aware of how much you work and how much you care. I am especially grateful for your work you are doing for our county to help us mitigate climate change through recycling, composting, and promoting clean energy. I understand the difficulty because of the decades and billions spent by the fossil fuel industry to spread disinformation. But hope you are aware that you have the support of many. So again, I thank you. And so will our children, our grandchildren, and future generations.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes.
Hello, my name is Barbara Schneider and I'm from Casson Township. And I just wanted to comment. I wanted to make one comment that I was very, very happy to see my representative Kofia come here before the board and report on behalf of what she was doing for the constituents in Leelanau County and Grand Traverse and Benzie County. I was very appreciative of the fact that she was letting us know what she was doing and what was going on in Lansing. And I just really appreciate her transparency. So I just wanted to make that comment clear. And I also wanted to make a comment that this is really kind of bothering me at these commission meetings. And I want to, Mr. O'Rourke, Commissioner O'Rourke, I want to think maybe you're right. I think our commissioners do need a raise. And one of the reasons that really bothers me is it's coming in here time after time and after time talking about the vote. But when we talk about that, there's no problem with our township clerks. Everybody says, and I think Commissioner Lautner said last meeting that she didn't have a problem with our township clerks or our county clerks. And I don't think anybody on this board has had any problem with the election. I haven't heard anybody complaining about what happened within their election, whether it was stolen, whether it was interfered with. So this is within our township. So what I'm saying, I don't think anybody on this board is a Secretary of State. So I don't think any of the people on this commission can do anything about the complaints that come in time after time after time. So I just want to thank you for listening to that time after time when there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. But what I do appreciate is all the other things that are doing that you can do something about. So I want to thank you for that and for continuing this and continuing to take care of our constituents. And I am very proud to live in a county that has the percentage of voters that we have. And I really think that we all should be proud of that, that all of the people take their responsibility in this county and get out and vote. So thank you and continue the good work in 2024. Thank you very much.
Yes, please.
Linda Ackley from Cedar. And I just would like to thank you for reaching out to the administration and staff during these difficult times and trying to help the county function better without turmoil, without hard feelings, and in some cases possibly paranoia about the way things are done. And I just want to thank you. I know it's very difficult. Thank you for maintaining privacy for those people who did have the courage to come forth and talk openly about what their issues were. I think it's really important going forward as the county continues to change and grow, that the board looks to the future and not just the past. I know that you have referred this morning many times to the way things used to be done, but maybe the way things used to be done isn't the best way to go. Maybe we need to keep looking forward and keep that in mind. I mean, I'm going to be 74 next month. I'm no spring chicken, and it's hard for me to change sometimes and keep up with progress. But I'd like to see the board do that and continue to work well with the staff and the administration, because after all, I mean, you are politicians and you are going to come and go. They tend to stay and make their career here, and they are essential. We need those people. We need them to feel good about the work they do. We don't want them laying awake at night worrying about repercussions or whatever is coming down the line on them. I just want to say that I support all of you, but I also support them and see that they are essential for the health of this county. So thanks, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes. Sona.
Hi again, Carrie Onan, Centerville Township. Thanks you guys for everything you do, for your service as our county commissioners, and Happy New Year to you. I didn't say that earlier. Regarding the topic of the meeting today, if I understand it, to be reviewing the results of the recent culture survey taken by a presumably neutral entity. I imagine most of us agreed from the jump on this idea that I, for one, loved it. I thought it was a fantastic idea to do. Early on when we heard about it, because it was a very quick process, I took exception to how quickly, not only was the entity that you all decided on, how quickly that decision was made. That didn't look good to me. It cast doubt with some of us on the intentions of otherwise honorable intentions of the commissioners that would want to get to the bottom of an environmental issue that we have within the culture of a building or a government. Absolutely. That's such an awesome idea. And some of us really took exception to the very quick, I can't even call it a vetting process, because you didn't, as I recall, you didn't actually seriously entertain anyone but this one entity. This one entity had as their background, his background, a history, an experience, a work experience, his whole life's experience sounded very much leaning one side of the aisle, which shouldn't be an issue in a situation like this. And we'll just see how it plays out. I think most of us are real excited to see how this unfolds. I mean, it can only hopefully be for the well-being of everyone here and to increase the good health of this government. But I did want to go on record as saying we did have concerns coming into this. It was a very rushed process. There was very little, if any, true vetting. And there wasn't a sense that all 7 of you really got to weigh in on who that entity would be and the process itself. There also was great concern about the lack of transparency in the process, which We do understand it could get really sticky. How much transparency would be okay? We understand that. But as your taxpayer paying constituents, of course, we still want to hammer that transparency issue. That's important to us. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Thank you all for being here. We will have another public comment opportunity at the end of our meeting. For some of you, this is the second meeting of the day, and we have a third one following this, which time you'll have public comment at that time as well. Thank you. Any commissioner comment? Okay.
Excited to hear.
We have one item on our agenda, and before we ask our Human Resources Director to introduce us to our presenter, I bought myself a book for the holidays, and it was a new biography on Lincoln. I was reading about the House divided speech. The very first line on that speech that Abraham Lincoln made in June of 1858 was, "If we could first know where we are and whether we are attending, we could then better judge what to do and how to do it." And I thought that was an appropriate way to start out this. Our purpose today is to learn where we are, and in future meetings, we can decide where we want to go with that. I would ask us to listen to the presentation, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. That would be it. So Darcy, would you come forward with Dr. Spolten?
Good afternoon. Briefly, just to remind you, in November, this board approved an employee climate survey to take place. It was conducted by Dr. John Skolton from the Michigan Leadership Institute. He came in and spent 3 days on site and then offered an online survey for those who could not meet with him personally. I'm excited to hear his results. I appreciate the hard work he's put into this, and I'm going to turn it over to him.
Well, I'd like to start with a Happy New Year. And as I told your chair, Ty, I said, thank you for not having blizzard weather today for me to travel in. But and he assured me that possibly on my way back home tonight, it might change that way, but I think it's really a little bit later in the week. So my intention today is to speak to the 7 of you. This is a report that you asked for. I'm going to review that report with you. I'm going to start out with what this actually is called a perception survey or a perception review. It's the climate is the culture of the employment workplace here in Leelanau County. Now, perception is a word that I think sometimes people look at and they think, oh, but in my experience, and I think from a theory perspective too, a person's perception becomes a reality in about 30 seconds. So what I'm presenting to you today is what you asked for, and that was the voice of your people, your employees. I'm going to give you a binder, a folder with the report in it. I'm going to ask you to stay with me and let me walk you through it, okay? So don't start pulling it apart and look for different sections on it. I'll follow it very clearly for you. And then as we stated earlier, or they stated earlier, we can entertain questions or comments at the end of the presentation. Fair enough? Is everybody okay with that idea? When I talk about perception, you understand where I'm going with that? But it really, I hope in your worlds too, personally and professionally, realities. So what I'm getting and what I'm going to share with you is your employees' realities. Okay? I think it's important too that this is the first time any of the commissioners, including the HR director, has seen this report. So we'll take it right from the top. All right. If you open it up and you look at the left-hand side of the binder, please, you'll see the application letter when we applied for a position to assist you. In that letter, it talks about a feedback study. It's what you're looking for. Talks about the methodology, the timeline, expected outcomes. Second page of that, I just prepared for you a copy of what we presented to you, what we expected the outcomes would be for the project. So this is the project you chose to work with. And I'm going to read these for the audience sake, if that's okay. The major outcomes of the project were individual meetings with county employees to occur over multiple days to collect information regarding employee perceptions of the work environment and overall work climate and culture. Online opportunities for employees to provide input toward the study if they're not able to attend an individual session or such approach is more convenient for them. The questions in the survey, both online and in person, were drawn up to attempt to draw out feelings or concerns, including, but not limited to, work concerns, feelings of value, appreciation, respect, etc. Questions also were used to attempt to draw out any additional concerns that employees may feel the Board of Commissioners should be aware of. Questions will attempt to draw out the positives about being a Leelanau County employee. So in essence, the final report should share perceptions regarding, quote, what works well, end quote, and quote, what may need attention, end quote. The final report will provide guidance and direction on moving forward to improve the climate and culture. Once again, the study is for you, is what you asked for. The information is coming from your employees. The interpretations, if there's any, is at the tail end of the report. And frankly, it's a culmination still of what your employees said to me. I will entertain some ideas for you to move forward. That's what you asked me to do. But that's the only part of it that's me. This report is intended and is your employee speaking. Fair enough? So the timeline, the data collection was designed, you wanted to be able to collect it because it was important to you, what I heard. It was important to you to get the feedback from your employees. The quicker, the better. So it was a pretty aggressive timeline, frankly, in this type of study, but we were able to accommodate it. I want to put a lot of kudos out to your HR director because she was a joy to work with. She arranged the meetings. She set time up. I always had a great room to work out of, and it worked really smoothly. So Darcy, thank you for all your help on that. The data analysis and report building late December 2023, and then report sharing early in January. I think we've hit that target. Today's January the 3rd. Fair enough? Okay, you can take the secretive blue sheet of paper off. That's tongue in cheek, sorry. Sometimes my sixth sense of humor comes out. If it's inappropriate, all you have to do is tell me that, okay? I provided you in this. I wanted to approach this in a way that was presentable, that was going to be as clear, as concise as possible. So you don't have 67 pages of dialogue that, you know, I had lived to. I'm just giving you bullet points of what I collected. This is the cover information that all your employees received about the survey. So you have a copy of this now. This is just basically my background, what the intent of the survey was. And in the middle there, probably more so for the audience to hear again, the process that I used was pretty basic. I had met individually with employees with a few questions. Basically, I did a lot of listening, and then I prepare a written as well as a verbal report on the findings and recommendations for improvement. We push hard to make this schedule work. They were nice enough to me not to start much before 9 o'clock, but we did. And they were nice enough to me not to ask me to be here when some of your crew were in at 11 and 12 and throughout the midnight hours. So the online version worked for people that couldn't pretty well. The most frequent concerns that you'll hear when you do this kind of work are concerns of reprisal, where employees, when they take a chance, they open up, they say what you wanted to hear. And they're worried that, I mean, that's typical everywhere, that there's going to be some reprisal through this process. If to help with that through the process, that was the background to say what my job is, what the expectation is. And I also gave everybody that I met with, and I met with, I think, 52 or 53 people. And before they left the room, I went back and I said, is there anything that you want to redact that you don't want to put in here because you feel it, says too much, that clearly identifies who you were, this comment came from, and everybody had that opportunity. That's a little harder to do online, but it worked out well, okay? Interviews were scheduled. We had full days. It went well. And We went from there. The next couple pages, that's just basically the survey that was used. So when I met with each individual person, I looked at the positives. I had a scale ranking, which I'll go over with you in a second, on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as what their perception was, is where the climate's at right now. And I spelled out for them, 1 would being that it's very, that it's totally broken, and 10 being it's extremely healthy. Then I went down and these are all open-ended, folks, which I told you at the onset when I proposed it. This wasn't and there was no intention, and I believe it was done really well, that this is not a way for me to try to lead a discussion. This is an open-ended question to say, you give me your feedback. So I wanted to know about the positives. How do you feel about working in the county? What makes you proud? We started out that way. That's kind of the easy way to go. I think there's some pretty interesting things that came out that you should appreciate hearing. Then after the scale rating, we went down to the challenges and the negatives. What are the biggest challenges and negatives being an employee of the county? And the third and final question, and they were all 15 to 20-minute meetings. It didn't matter what your position was. And you do have a few employees that maybe pull a little more weight or try to, but it was like, nope, it doesn't matter what your title is. We stay with that time schedule. And I was able to do that pretty well. So the last closing was, what's one of the most important things, and I'd let some go to the top 2 issues that you want to make sure as a consultant I bring to the commissioners. So they had that opportunity to say, well, let's hone in now and say, this is what I want those commissioners to hear. If they don't hear anything else, what is it I want them to hear? The same data collection was online. That's a real life example of what it looked like online for the employees. This was sent out to the folks that didn't have the opportunity to schedule an opportunity to meet with me in person. So as you can see, the same questions are there, and they were able to do that through SurveyMonkey and send me the information. I do believe this is the first time as commissioners, you've probably seen this. True? I hope so anyways. I expect that. Okay. So I'm going to jump right into the positives, and I'd like you to kind of keep focused on me and not be jumping around on the pages right now, because I think it's important that I hit on these. I can help you try to understand later what the comments were. These are your people's comments. These are not mine. Okay. This is coming from your people. So I just need to keep that clear from the get-go. And I'm going to sound a little repetitive about that, but I think it's important to say. One of the things I was pretty pleased with and proud of is the servant mentality. And that came out very, very prevalently from every rank and file throughout your organization. How proud they are to serve your community, okay? And that service piece was big. It was huge. And I think you need to hear that as commissioners, that the majority of your employees, now I'm not going to tell you exactly every single one of them, but a vast majority of them were very proud with that. They used terms like being a civil servant. They talked about the passion to take care of people, provide quality services to the taxpayers, the love of the interaction with the people they work with and interact with within your communities. And being a part, a good portion of them still like to talk about the fact they are able to work in a community they grew up in. And as you know, like a lot of places in our state, it's tough and they don't all get to live in our community. But that was pretty positive. Probably shouldn't surprise you too much on the benefit piece, because they have extremely good benefits. That was extremely high on their part as a positive. The salary, the pension, and they talked about the financial solvency of the county. So there's a lot of people that deserve and get credit for that you continue to be extremely solvent throughout the years. And it makes them proud to be an employee of yours. You have kind of you get this, I believe, I hope you do anyways, that you have departments that work. I referred to them from my term with them in conversation as silos, that they kind of work in their own separate silos or departments, as you may call them more formally. And some of them, a lot of the feedback was their mindset is right within their department, their silo. And then they would bring the feedback of when they'd have to come out of their silo. So just so you know that, okay? I think it's critical as you move forward down the road, and I'll get into this in the recommendations, that everybody thinks beyond their silos, okay? But overall, I think there was a lot of people that responded. They really like the people they work with, okay, for the most part, that they're dedicated, they're competent, and they're very cooperative. That's a positive. Another thing that came out real strong was that, and it wasn't everybody, it was that most of the employees, it was predominant, will step up and help each other out. they'll find ways to help them in times of crisis or whatever it may be, but they're there to support and help each other. You all are flexible for families. That came out loud and clear in many, many ways. You care about each other and you're very accommodating. It's a good, safe, secure place to work. The longevity was recognized of people. Like any organization today, you're seeing, it's harder and harder sometimes to fill positions, but you have a lot of people that have spent a lot of years in this county working. And that's been important for your employees. They see that as a real plus. They were pretty clear on, they see it as a positive, your decision a couple of years ago, the severance of the finance and HR from the clerk, that came out very loud and clear from the vast majority of your people. Then they appreciate your efforts to separate. There were a number of comments on HR and that Deb was great, things like that. There was a handful that toward the end, and these are coming in order of where I got most comments, but there were a number of people, it was a little discerning, that said there's nothing positive, that it's toxic, but it wasn't a huge number. But that was a little discerning to me, that you have employees that feel there's nothing positive in the county. In essence, it could have hit them on a bad day when we did the survey too, but I thought that should be included. So response rate. I was told you have 117 people, potentially I could draw from. We got feedback from 85. That's a 73% response rate. That's pretty healthy in a survey. It's a pretty healthy response rate. So we're pretty pleased with that. On the scale score, I told you 1 to 10, just try to keep it simple in terms, 1 being broken and 10 being totally healthy. The average score, which I felt was the best way, you could go median or some scientific way. It doesn't mean that much to you, but the average score was 3.8. That should be a little bit concerning, and I think that supports why you wanted to do what we did, okay? That's not probably a number you want to see right now on average from your employees, but it is what came from your folks. Okay? Moving okay at an okay rate for you right now? Okay. We'll jump into the more challenging stuff, the challenges. Lower pay was one of the highest ones that came out of your employees, okay? That didn't come out of everybody, but it came out of a number of people. I saw a lot of and heard a lot of the cost of living in Michigan's wealthiest county. I'll get into that more if you want me to. I had to research that a little bit because I lived in Leelanau County, and I know what our house, what I bought it for, and I know what I sold it for, and I'm not sure I could afford to come back in some areas, but I researched that and we can talk about that a little bit. But I think that's something you need to hear, that that term wasn't from just 2 or 3 people. The wealthiest county, that you all need to open your pocketbook open a little bit more to take care of your employees, take care of the existing, as well as, I heard it pretty loud and clear, the recruitment of new employees. And let me backtrack a little bit. Early on, it was, I heard a lot of things from the building across the street. And so you kind of have one entity on that side of the street, you have a street and you have this building. So if I use those terms, that it's coming from them, not from me, okay? So I knew the governmental center, I'd come over here and seen it after I'd left the county, but I really didn't know a lot about the layout and everything. So sometimes that varied, but what I would push people to do is open the interview, I said, think of the broad perspective when you give me it. Okay, don't give me just perspective from your own little silo, your own little department, but the broad side, okay? Overall. They talked about a number of people must do, like, I know I've wasted a lot of time with 2 kids looking for houses over the years on Zillow, but they had the median value at that time of, almost $600,000 of homes. The need to support our families. I guess if I was to put a little bit of me in ahead of my job right now, and you can, don't throw something at me, just say, don't do it, John. But I'd really kind of highlight this. I think a lot of them are tired of hearing, it's too bad you can't afford to live here, or you don't need to live here. Okay. They get that. I mean, if that house value pricing and on average in Leelanau County is $600,000, I don't know a lot of your employees that's going to be an entry-level home. Okay. But it came out from them. And once again, I'm the messenger. Okay. It came out from them pretty clearly. Please don't throw that in our face. as often or at all, really. And we understand, for the most part, we have really good benefits. As a matter of fact, they may have some of the best benefits around, because I dug a little bit on that to see what they were all about. All right. So they understand that. So that's not helping climate issues if that gets thrown in their face. Okay. They get that. They understand it. All right. Sorry to add to that, but I thought that was important that you'd heard that part of it. Okay. It came out a fair amount, quite a bit actually, that employees are not treated equally. The stipend issue, and that varied, but the stipends that came out the most were about the clerk, the chief deputy, and the interim business. People referred to these three as the group of three. That was their terms, not mine. And this came from a number of that nobody else gets these stipends. Everybody else seems to suck it up when it needs to get work done. The federal COVID relief, which I was out of the business then, but initiated from first responders or something. And I didn't research it to see what you did or didn't. This is coming from your people. Initially, it was $1,000 was turned down. You took the 500, but then you gave 500 to every employee. That resonated with a lot of people. It wasn't my job to say, why do you feel that way? It was my job to listen to what they said to you. Okay. There was a fair amount, actually quite a bit, about the clerk's office seems to get whatever they need, though they felt duties were cut with this shift. There have not been other staffing increases. I don't know the 15-year-old chairs, what that means, but I heard that a lot. Okay. And I heard a fair amount of, there are certain departments like IT that could use more support. Next bulleted, and I put the bullets for the broad for you, and then I just gave that, definition a little more below them. Employees not really feeling valued or respected. What I heard was, I think you need to find ways to show them the value a little more, and you need to really put an end to any of these negative comments toward public employees at public meetings, towards employees at public meetings. So I haven't been at your meetings. I didn't dig into the enterprise enough to see that, but if that kind of stuff's going on, it resonated a lot with your people. To the point of them saying that they feel lack of support from you as commissioners. Employees need to be shown a little more respect. Concern about losing way too many good employees surface from a lot of people. You've had retirements coming up. You've had resignations. They feel that you need to dig a little deeper to see why. They don't feel that it's been real public as to why some of these people have left. Now, I'm jumping back into the rain down the road. That's your prerogative where it goes with it. I can give you my perspective on that afterwards if you want it, but your employees just feel they really, and a lot of it was probably Jared and Sean, that they just never got the true story behind it. When that happens, I think what happens with people is they suddenly jump to conclusions, and maybe their conclusions aren't factual. Once again, I said the word perception for a reason, but it becomes their reality. Okay. And when we talk about plans on how you can improve that, there's direction, I think, with communication that you could probably improve that. The next part they went to pretty strongly was a struggle to control the finances. They really feel, majority of your employees feel you need to resolve that. You need to find a way to make that work. Basically pull off the Band-Aid, I heard a lot, and make it happen. But when that was coupled with not only pull the Band-Aid off and make it happen, but you got to be able to provide the resources they need too. And you're going to know what that means more than I do. Okay. I heard it from people, and it's their opinions, their perspectives, but it was voted in 2021, support the administrator and finance, and it says Michelle Crocker should not be the CFO. And I don't think Michelle Crocker is the CFO right now. I think she's the clerk. Okay. The Raymond report should not be pushed aside like other reports and studies. I know the Raymond organization, so I kind of know exactly what they would do. I don't know what the report said. It wasn't my job to look into that. Okay. But they did talk about your past administrator doing surveys. the concern was that Chet might have done a survey like this and nothing was done with it. They talked about other reports that nothing was done with it. You know, all I assured them is I said, you have a board of commissioners that committed to doing this. It's important to them, so they're doing it. So it's up to you what you do with it moving forward. Agreed? There's a pretty strong sense out there that the clerk's office is vindictive and quite a few felt dishonest. They feel, and I put the names in there because they all were there with it. Crocker and Zawicki seemed to put their nose in everything. How they talk to people, mean-spirited. They're kind of like peas in a pod. And there's a real sense that if one speaks out against this group, that there's going to be problems for you. Now, once again, it's perceptions, but it's these people's realities. They voiced it, okay? There's a sense that the board's probably overly relying on the clerk's office. There was a fair amount of talk about personnel records that are still with the clerk and not just HR. Access to computers was talked about, keys to desks. Boards need to come to the administrator and the departments with questions. Don't just rely on the clerk. Now, I don't know your structure and if they sit out in your meetings typically, but I believe what I heard from people is that you just need to start asking them some questions because they feel maybe you rely on, you know, on Michelle's office too much. There was a whole lot of talk from both sides of the street. When I say both sides of the street, about first floor drama. First floor drama is this building, is my interpretation. That first floor drama has got to get taken care of. It's too much. So it's here in the government center building. And it was pretty adamant it was first floor. There's a lack of trust. A lot of people are concerned about confusion of who you can talk to. If you've got a concern, you got to be careful what you say. Certain people who have political alliances. We talked about the PR, the public relations. They feel it's embarrassing about the finance directors leaving. We talked about public bickering between department heads and elected officials that happen, I guess, in public meetings, infighting. At times you're embarrassing as a board. That once it came back to the work's not being respected, the work being done in the county beyond you. Commissioner Lautner, they centered in on her a little bit, actually a fair amount. Thought she was pretty toxic, thought she was mean-spirited, was actually anti-employee, had been a little bit erratic, and there was a pretty strong sense that they feel there's a conduit to the clerk and the chief deputy clerk. They didn't just talk about Commissioner Lautner about really not knowing their employees or departments. I sense that you all have that. Now, when we get into what can you do moving forward, you're a big enough organization. I don't think you can know them all intimately, you know, and if you do, then you're probably spending your time way too much in the grass. All right, I'll go back to this part of the report. Chain of command was a concern. Pretty good sense they feel the board's lost their perspective on what their role is. And they use the term governance. If you're here to govern and you're elected officials to do that, that's what you should be doing. There was a fair amount of talk about some work that's been done with chain of command, but it was done by the employees. And I didn't really get to the bottom of what that was, but I think it was more about how you treat people, how you act and stuff like that. They felt whatever the employees, and I believe it was geared toward the, you know, I'm not talking about the entry level, but more of the management leadership team. There was some past training that went on about how you treat people and how you work together as a team, that maybe the board could benefit from that kind of thing too. And the chain of command, there was a fair amount of concern that it appears that the interim chief financial officer goes directly to the board. Leadership is lacking was a concern. With the lacking of leadership, and I'm talking about administration right now, it was that the department heads and the administration, it's got to get in line. You got to get it in a better position, working better, that they're a little bit out of control right now. The board, once again, got put in, looking at you folks, that you circumvent administration and you rely more on these other three people that they referred to, the group of three. These digs were, I believe, toward the current administration, but the door is being closed. Okay, that past administration, I believe they were only going back as far as Chet, but that his door was open more often and he was out and about more often, that they have not seen that. And I believe Darcy was put in that role too. Okay, that was with the administration, that they really don't feel that those doors are open enough. And it seems very apparent to your employees that you're not backing your current administrator. Communication was another big issue. The board needs to get more information and they need to ask questions of the administrators, the administrator and the department heads. Not once again rely just so much on the clerk's office. I think this is important for you to hear that last line, because you're getting a lot of stuff thrown at you right now. They were pretty clear with this. They really believe you're well-intentioned. You heard from your community members in the public comment a few minutes ago, thanking you for the work you do. A lot of your employees believe you're well-intentioned. I think that's the same type of message they mean. They just think you need to hear from more people in those leadership roles, okay? That's how I read that. The code of conduct training, we need to follow. I think that's the thing that I'm guessing it's something that Janik provided, you know, along the lines. And I'm going to guess, if I had to, that it was probably something devised by Tim Quinn that Chet worked with a lot and worked with his employees. That'd be pretty easy to figure out what that was all about. But that resonated with people about how they work together as team members and they support each other. But that maybe you guys could benefit from it as well. Supporting the administrator moving forward, it's got to change, got to be supported. Elected officials stepping over boundaries. I think governance training is something that you've probably had in the past. It's been a while. And one thing I put in quotes, because this came out from a number of different people on a number of different levels, that you can't touch elected officials. I'd like to come back to that when it's my turn to give you perspective, but that was something that came from all different levels, that you can't touch elected officials. And I found that kind of interesting, but I'll save that for a few more minutes. And this was something that I think was the hopeful part of it. And I don't want to sound Pollyanna, like the brand new year, yay, yay, rah, rah, but this whole notion that was pretty consistent. We got to work together. We got to get better at that. And that was across the board. We got to learn to play better together, play nice better together. And I like this part of it, which I heard a lot. The reason we're here, the reason we exist, is we're here to serve the public. So I believe what I was hearing from that was they want to get beyond some of this petty stuff that they've, you know, been a part of and contributed to. So the top issues. The highest percentage of things I heard about, now these back again to your employees, this is not necessarily recommendations yet moving forward, but they might parallel in a few minutes. Move the finance and HR. It's important to your employees that direction you've started, that you continue that course. But they, once again, I reiterate it, whatever they meant by this, that the tools and the resources have to be there for the move, okay? That the support's got to be there, and whatever those pieces that they felt were missing need to be there. Clerk needs to be able to let go. Interim finance is tied pretty close to the clerk. I heard the term a number of times. Maybe it's just time for a hard reset, you know, and it came from a lot of different levels, that it's just time to reset that whole HR thing and say, let's start fresh, because they want to see the separation, but let's clean up the past and move forward and play better together. I think the look at cost of living wage, because you're the wealth, and I'm going to add a little bit, if you get insulted, say, John, knock it off. But, you know, I lived here, I live in Emmett County. Emmett County now is not a whole lot different than this county, pretty similar, same type of issues. I was thinking, and I had a lot of great memories coming back here, and actually just meeting a parent of some of the students who, now their kids are real grown, making me feel real old. Charbonnet in the background there on the way in, seeing her, and I hadn't seen her in a long time. But I remember, sitting on an affordable housing task force in the late 90s and 2000, with Bob Sluter and a number of other Leland people and, Grand Travers. This is not a new issue. I mean, it will continue to be an issue. We have the same issue up in Emmett County, but whatever you can do with that, and this is understanding communication of the total budget, is going to be helpful to you. And I'll push that back into the discussion moving forward, but I really believe the wage issue, though I believe you, from what I've gathered, you treat your people pretty well right now. It's just an expensive place to live. It's an issue, but wage studies, you've done it in the past. You got to keep doing it. You got to be able to show your employees and communicate where they're at and how it compares to comparable areas. You don't compare yourself, in my opinion, to a Bloomfield Hills, but you also don't compare yourself to a rural poor county. You've done it before, right? Those of you that have been around, yes. That kind of stuff is helpful, at least to put, that doesn't change it, but at least it helps, okay? I think communication is a big issue that you're going to have to look at. And this was a top issue from your people. They want you to listen to them. They want you to hear them a little more, appreciate them, value them, understand them. And there's a lot of them that fear retaliation. So I appreciate you sticking firm with me on the way this approach was, because I looked each one in every one of them in the eye and I said, I'm not going to reveal your name. I need you to be honest with me and be candid. But they still they fear that. Okay. It's a reality for them, not just a perception. You got to keep up with communication. They referred to too many times what they thought of as backdoor conversations or decisions, that those need to end. That's a top, one of the top priorities there. You need to develop. Top issue for them was trust and confidence in your employees. And I think part of what they would hope is that you could gain a better understanding what they do for you. You increase the ability and accuracy to hear them, to listen to them. You dig for the truth and you understand them better. There's a lot of concerns about knowing who to trust in the infighting right now. That's going to take some work moving forward. But it's a two-way street, isn't it? Don't micromanage. There's a phrase that drives me nuts today, but it's a phrase in our world, and it's in county government too, stay in the lane. But it makes sense to a lot of people what it means to stay in the lane, but sometimes we veer out of them, don't we? It's important to your employees that you do stay in your lane as a board of commissioners. They want to be trusted more. They want the departments to be trusted more. The board role we talked about, Raymond report, policies that you have, that you follow them, that you review them. You have policies, right? Eliminate the public digs. That came up a lot, and I've said it a number of times already. If you have those issues, that's got to come through the chain of command to be done effectively, okay? If you're doing it, it's not serving your role as a board of commissioners. You should rely on your administration to take care of that for you. Special interest came up. They feel that carries a lot. Code of conduct came up. I feel pretty strongly that they feel the clerk's office should be in the duties that the clerk's office has. The elections, the minutes, the meetings, things, a lot of other things that the clerk's office has. But that goes back to the strong sense that they want to see the HR and the finance separated. Last but not least was offices need to work better together. Everybody does. It's easy for, and I'm not going to pick on a department, who some of them are that are better at it, because honestly, they could probably totally function in their little apartment and never step out of it, couldn't they? That's not a way a county government should function, though. They need to know each other a little better and support each other. Kindness, respect, teamwork, and they just want to see support for the administrator and the department heads. So moving forward, this is the last part of what you committed with us, at least from this project, okay? I really think you're going to benefit if you get after some governance training and not just check it off and do it, but commit to it and realize that you'll focus in on it and Get somebody that can come in here and give it to you and help you with it and just remind you what the role is. That's going to be a big start, just showing that you schedule that sooner than later, okay? But you got to dedicate yourselves to it. If you go in at any of these things that I'm going to suggest and you just, it's next Tuesday's meeting, we'll get it out of the way. This isn't going to get better. You get that? You believe me on that? Code of conduct, I'd go back if I were you to chat. It would be pretty easy, how to get a hold of him and just ask him what that was all about, Deb, I don't know if you know what that would be all about or not, but whatever he did, that resonated with a lot of these leaders that just said, it provided like guiding principles of how we function. And he might be able to share that with you and then spend a little time with you. The commitment and the decision to move forward with the separation of finances and human resources is important to your employees. It's your call where you go with it. You made the decision. I did read enough in the newspapers to know how it was voted upon, all that. I don't need to that's not what you hired me to do. But that resonates with them. But even with that, they're still saying, the employees predominantly are saying, you got to move forward with that separation. I think you need to commit to improve communication. And these moving forward things are not just Board of Commissioners, it's your administration, it's your HR, which I understand you're losing your HR, but it's everybody that the leadership team, it's Michelle in the clerk's office, it's everybody, okay? You got to get better at that because it's not working real well right now. People don't feel they're getting the information they need. Commit yourself to the deeper, broader listening. If you can demonstrate that and show that, I think it's going to go a long ways. Listen, share, learn, discern, and then make the decisions. Stay focused on that. If you miss a few of those steps along the way, you're not going to make the better decision, I don't think. Okay. I think the wage scale study and review, I let off a little bit with the conversation with Bob Schluter and a group of us that were on those committees. It's just, I get it. Those issues have been around. They're real issues on the lake shores, on our communities, aren't they? But I don't think you can pay wages high enough for any of your employees hardly to say that they can own $1 million homes, nor is that county government's responsibility. But that's not what they're saying. I think if you can at least show them and work with them that you're doing the best you can do for their wages, it's going to go a long ways. And that might not even mean a change in what the wages are, but if you can show you put that effort and energy into it, that's going to go a long ways. I added in there a bit that they need to have a little more information. I don't think, please don't take this suggestion as being that every one of your employees from, the chief dishwasher to whatever, all the way up the ladder has to know every little bit of your finance, your budget. I don't mean it that way, but a better understanding. I sense you have a good tax base here, but you also, as I remember when I lived here, that we rolled back rates because we had a good tax base. They need to understand this wealthiest county in the state thing, what that really means and how that applies to, I think, the day-to-day stuff and how you run the county. It just may provide, and once again, I wasn't here, I'm just taking data, but if I'm guessing where it could be is having a little more information on that whole budget process. I picked up bits and pieces about, and I have a real vague memory because that's quite a few years. How long has this building been here now? Close to 20 years? 16? Okay. You had a pretty good tax base to build it. I just don't remember the details on it, but I think there's some confusion about, there's this image out there a little bit that you all have this pot of money somewhere that I don't know what you're doing with it, but you're not giving it to people. And I know better than that. You don't have this pot of money. Do they, Michelle? Okay. But it's got to get communicated so people understand that better. Okay. And it might be with how the building, and I'm looking at you, Melinda, because I think you're the only commissioner that was around. It could be with something that's still tailing on how that, because of your tax base, you're able to do this building. I don't know.
It's all to your perception, because that's right. That's half the story.
Yep.
They cash for this building, bonded across the street. So
Yeah.
that's
But
what's forgotten.
once again, once again, were you all gonna be served? I thank you for that, because I think it's helpful right now. Once again, understand that and just talk to people about that so they understand it better, okay? It didn't come out, the details about the bonding, it didn't come out on that. It's just, there's this perception that 5 was too much to think that you're the wealthiest place in the world and you're not giving out wages. The other piece that comes to my mind that resonated, and I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, but there was talk about arbitrations and things like that. Why are we spending money on it? That's coming back, in other words, we spent more money in arbitration than we needed on the wage thing. It's still back to communication. And I get it. I spent a lot of years having to negotiate too. Okay. There's a lot you can't share publicly, but when you can, you need to make sure that stuff gets out there. I think the leadership piece has to improve, period. Administration. You need to make sure that there are better interpersonal skills. When people talk about the doors closed all the time, that isn't the way this county should operate in their perspective, okay? Now, I'm not judging and saying your door's closed all the time. All I'm hearing is that I heard that from people. It's their reality though, okay? I think the finance background and understanding, if you're gonna stay with that course you're on or have been on, you better make sure you have somebody that's pretty strong in those areas, right? And don't rush to hire, don't rush to do whatever. You better make sure you've got the position in place, right? Because otherwise I think you're gonna be spinning your wheels for a long time. Administration, I believe, needs better communication with the Board of Commissioners, and it's got to be mutual. Respect's got to be there. Whatever the outcome, whatever direction you all end up in or don't end up in, it's got to be better than it's been, okay? I'm going to go a little further on a limb, because you can fire me at the end of this thing, just be done with me. But I really, in my heart, I want to provide insight that's going to help you too. It was pretty awkward for me coming into, I mean, I've been through a lot of board meetings, they were all school board, but I've been also to city government, county government too, a lot. But I looked to see where the administrator was and who it even was, because I'd never met Deb Allen. And I just felt, and this is, that was almost like there's no presence there. And I've used the term wrong or right. It was almost like that position's been neutered, that it's just not there. And that's an outsider walking into your meetings right now. That's being really candid with you and direct. But I think that's what I was told to do and be with you. Whatever direction you go in, finance, interpersonal, and you got to communicate better, okay? But a lot of these issues that have come up are issues that as a board, you shouldn't be dealing with. Your staff should be. Teamwork training. Once again, I think it's just commitment to it too. And really want to do it. How do you function better? I mean, there's training that you can get as a board. You could bring people in to sit with you and spend as much time as you needed or wanted to say, how are you going to personally function better? Because you've got to be better at it. Not just for the public persona, but that's important too, isn't it? All right. But for your sanity. Okay. And most important, to serve this county. Like your employees have said, the joy and the privilege of serving this county. I think the departments, the silos, as I call them, you're not gonna take the zoning and say, oh, you've got to be buddies with the courts. No, I don't mean it that way, but a better understanding. I mean, there are certain departments that probably could do most of their work and never cross paths with any of the other departments. That's not the healthiest way to be, is it? I just closed it with, and these weren't my words. I liked them. I just reiterated them. These were your people's, but I like them. So that's why I put it in bold print. Work together more, play nice, and remember the reason you're here. Okay. The reason you exist is to serve that public that you represent. Before I open it up to comments, and once again, I will try to share whatever I can, but remember what I've shared with you is 99.9, other than the last little bits and where I interjected, is your people. So I'll try to help you understand what your people said to me, but I want to just touch on elected officials, you can't touch them. I just have had a hard time getting my head around that, and maybe if I had months to study it, it would be one thing, but I didn't. You wanted me here first part of January. I think that perception alone is dangerous, and it needs to be addressed. Now, I get it that certain positions, and there are positions in front of me right now that are elected. I get it. You're all elected. But that doesn't mean you can't be touched. I mean, as an elected board, yeah, we don't reelect you, right? As a public. But I go back to that last closing thing. Don't accept that. Don't as an elected officials, don't accept that. Work to say, well, no, we're all in this together. Because that perception, I think, alone is dangerous. You have some strong personalities here, but they're good people. You got a good group of people, right? You just got to get them pulling better together. I'm going to go out on the last limb I'm going to go out on, I think right now is you can't touch them. My understanding, the work you do is similar to the work I did for 24 years as a school superintendent and, governance team member of a board, is you still had a pretty good influence and control of budgets, don't you? So don't you have to work together? No, I'm not throwing that at you, and I don't want to get pulled over by the sheriff now to be speaking blasphemy, but you still control budgets and you work together. You got to work together as a team. And I'm not picking just on the sheriff. I use that as an example because I'm going to drive out of your county on the way out of here. But don't you have some influence on that? Yes, no? Am I wrong on that? Melinda, you're looking puzzled. I mean, you guys set the budgets, don't you?
Not puzzled. I'm surprised you're puzzled.
I'm not puzzled.
No, okay.
I'm pushing the issue.
Like to clarify, yes.
Yeah, I'm pushing the issue and I'm being a little coy with it, but I'm just saying, I'm not suggesting you to come in and say, get to the table, we're going to set you straight because we can pull you. That wouldn't go over real well. But that perception that people say you can't touch an elected official was way too prevalent, I thought.
So we can touch them through their budget is what you're alluding to.
I'm asking you the question, do you set the budget? You do as a board of commissioners, you oversee it. Yep. Isn't that a team effort then? If they, if somebody's not playing nice and I don't even want to be a part remotely of trying to muscle that for you as a board. However,
We certainly don't want to muscle.
but it's a reality. And that just goes back to, because it's not really fair that if this feels like a lot of this is thrown on you or on her office or whatever, it's your people's perspectives right now. It's their perceptions, their realities. But that last closing part, before I open up to comments you want to make, would be, boy, I don't know how that one goes over. I just think that one, has got to probably be worked on a little bit. Like a few of these things we've talked about. I look to Ty as the chair and say, direction you want me to go in. I believe, and as I went back when we started, what your objective was to hear from your employees. That was my job. I believe I've relayed pretty well what your people feel.
You take questions and comments? Yes.
I would say thank you for your work. Forward. That means a lot. 73% of the people.
Yes.
Up there gave up. And obviously it's difficult to go in and actually talk to them, as you found out, and then keeping them anonymous. But I appreciate your work.
Thank you. It meant a lot to them. So you hear this, that you committed to this. And you hired me to make sure they understood that. Now, I can't promise what you do with it moving forward, but I promised them what you committed to. And I made sure they understood that. And I do believe that was appreciated too. I know that was appreciated.
I would like to thank you for this work. And I want to thank the employees who came forward and spoke. Wages, I've always advocated for higher wages. People need to be able to live. It is a really tough issue. Because yes, we're the wealthiest county in the state. We also have the lowest tax rate. And we sure don't want to raise taxes. So our people need to make more. And I don't know how we squeeze that. I don't know where we squeeze that from. So I appreciate their voice. Their life has gotten expensive, and yes, we can have the best benefits in the world, but we still have to pay the bills and pay mortgages and rents and all of those things. I'd also like to, I believe that we are all committed to keep walking the road of the separation of HR and finance from the clerk is probably, when you look long-term, a good thing to do. I hope people will realize that it's very difficult. You don't just do it. We've stumbled, and part of it is because our wages are so low, we can't attract people to work here who are qualified. And we have to do it very, very carefully, because the last thing we want to do is mess with people's meaning. Finance is difficult. It's very involved, very, very complicated. And we just want to make sure we step through that very, very carefully. And we sure wish there had been planning before that so that we could have executed this better. And there wasn't. So we have tried to recreate something that was not planned. Again, I appreciate people's voices. I think everyone is on a learning curve all the time. And what we can do is listen to each other and respect each other. So thank you for this work.
You're welcome, Commissioner Aguirre, and the rest of you. Remember, part of the message they said beyond your people said, and use this as you move forward, that they respect and appreciate the solvency that you've had in this county. Okay, so
That's so hard.
it is, but don't leave that piece out of it too, that you better stay solvent, because you're gonna have more problems than just with your employees if you don't stay solvent, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, go.
So, yeah, thank you for putting this together and echoing the other commissioners. Thank you for all the employees, team members that gave input. You are heard. There's an awful lot here to digest, to self-reflect on. But it will be self-reflected on. It will be heard. I want to also reiterate some of the things you said. Perception is reality. The person has a perception, and echoing something else. If they have the wrong, if the perception is wrong, then our communication is wrong. So those two things work hand in hand. If you want to change the perception, communicate better, or listen better, and then you know that you need to change your perception of the situation. So an awful lot here to digest. Thank you for everyone who came forward, gave input. This is how we move forward. I guess this you take home and look at a lot.
Yes, Commissioner Kramer.
Can you explain the process into which you kind of divided this data, and did you glean any quantitative data? And is that, because I know you started looking, that's available. Do you have any of that information, and how exactly did you extrapolate this, like, scientifically? Like, how did you get that information? Scrub it from, you know what I mean? Just so I have a better understanding.
I told you at the onset that it was going to be more qualitative, which you understood and you were supportive of that. I told you there was going to be a portion that was quantitative. And I think the closest to quantitative would be the direct and Survey Monkey on the ranking system, okay? However, the approach to scrubbing it was really an old-fashioned kind of tallying, okay? Of looking for commonality and look for themes that were the most prevalent ones. That was the most important things. I mean, there were a good number of outlier comments that were singletons that were way out here that, you know, out of 117 employee potential and however many we saw, that there was one comment like that, that didn't end up in your report. Okay. So it was kind of that approach would be, you know what I mean, by tallying and going through and spending a fair amount of time with that. I didn't use a software system or anything like that to do it. Did I answer the question though? I mean, to help you understand it better, so.
Yeah, I was just curious as to how you, yes, thank you.
Sure, I would like to just say that I'm gonna have to digest our changes in our structure for committees. But I do promise that as the chair of the personnel committee, if given the task by the full board, I will go full-fledged on these recommendations and trying to figure out with experts in our community, how we can professionally make some positive changes. So I am ready and I anxiously await the consensus of this board to help us move forward as quickly as possible.
Yes, again, as was stated, thank you very much. I think in some ways I hardly know where to start, but I think that if somebody does delve into what you said and what you alluded to a lot, I think you're absolutely right about perception. And quite often, communication is the key. You know, a lot has been said about, we haven't looked at a wage study in general and in whole, but we've looked at individual employees, perhaps one at a time, and these very arguments come up when it comes to, well, you know, we need more money, right? So what is the bottom line? Bottom line, I believe our lowest paid employee here is over $50 an hour with benefits. So we have the task of, as you said, our number one task, our budget. County's budget's tax, the county's tax dollars. That's our responsibility. So we do have to look at that. It all has to factor in. So you're absolutely right. We certainly can't afford to pay wages up here so that we can go out and purchase a $600,000 home, which is, let's say, $560,000 for homes. We just simply can't afford to do that. We all know that. This is what you're saying. But what we have said is, it is okay. It is okay to live outside of Leelanau County. Would we love for them all to live in Leelanau County? Yes, we've said that. But we also appreciate the fact that some cannot, and some don't want to. Some like living in other areas where they're closer to Traverse City or other areas. Then that's all okay. We do have the lowest tax rate, and I have to look at Andrew for this. Yes, we do have the lowest tax rate. However, our millage rates bring in more money than almost every other county because of our values up here. So while we haven't had to raise our millage level at county, it's bringing in more and more and more money every year, and that has allowed us not to raise that rate. But the other key to that is we are solvent, and that hasn't come easy. That has been because we have worked extremely hard in every angle, in every department, in every issue to try to run a very streamlined government up here, and it has worked. Now, do we have bags of money in the bank? I don't think so. I turned to John Gallagher, and I think he's told me no, we don't. But do we want to raise that tax rate? No, I do agree. We absolutely do not, because I know it would just devastate, especially the ag community in Leelanau County. It's trying to hang on. You know, our insurance. I did like reading that our employees do appreciate the insurance. We've got, as we've heard from our insurance guy, an insurance up here that is second to no one else in Michigan. So You know, I hear from constituents all the time, you know, their medical bills. We just were at the hospital, it's 5,000 out of pocket, 10,000 out of pocket. And these aren't even families, 20,000 out of pocket. We just had a child that was 13,000 out of pocket to have a child. Our employees don't have that issue. So, and you're right, they do have bills to pay, but on the other hand, cut our insurance and have our employees pay that much more out of pocket. It's the same thing. We just can't touch our insurance, and that has to be a part of it. So this is so much fair. Now, as far as your survey goes, it's interesting because in the last 2 weeks, I cannot tell you the number of employees I've heard from. They're alarmed, they're disturbed, they're concerned. They think this building is absolutely out of control. So this survey, I think you could run this survey every 2 weeks. And I think it would be very interesting to see what your results were and what the questions would be. I voted no on doing this survey, and I had one employee call me and ask me why I didn't want the survey results. And I said, you misunderstand totally why I voted no. When this board voted to hire you, they broke our very policy, brand new policy, broke it to hire your firm. That was alluded to earlier. So that was, I stick with policy and procedure, and that was a very unfair thing for us to do, both to those not on that committee and to the public. So not your firm personally, that was made very, I thought, very clear. So we do have some homework to do, and that's for sure. But I think communication and you know, thing is too, and your questions, I'm not quite sure where you came up with them, but they're interesting. I see there were, where did I go to them? Kind of one looking for positive, and they're really interesting. I think there could have been more questions asked that would have given us even more information we might have looked for too. So that's future, I would guess. So that's it. Thank you. Just encourage the employees to continue calling because we're learning a lot.
Thank you, Commissioner Lautner. Let me reiterate the communication like she has as well. I think the decision to move in the direction you did to do a survey, to have an independent outside party do it is huge, okay? The next step for you is gonna be what you do with it. Communication is a big part of this right now. I want you to make sure you've heard loud and clear. They appreciate the whole solvency part of the county. Do you think your employees understand that totally like you have to? No, they don't, but they appreciate it, right? Because if you weren't solvent, they wouldn't have good benefits and they wouldn't have the wages they have, okay? So you got to stay with that. The parts I heard on the communication piece from folks is really about, you're going to get frustrated through this process like they get frustrated with you, okay? That's the play better together, okay? That's just the part that it's easy to say, because I don't know that there are anybody out there that has, maybe from what I've heard about what your benefits are like, that anybody has those benefits anymore. But by pushing that, what they feel in their face and saying, because of your benefits, it just doesn't get the traction you probably need to try to get, okay? They recognize they got great benefits. The wage piece of it, I think it's more still back to communication. That I tried to make clear in my suggestion, that isn't, I'm not trying to advocate to say, you know, yeah, you got to take care of people the best you can, but you also got to stay solvent. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So you find that balance. I think where you can improve things is just better communication. And that's from your administration through your board. The survey design, I don't need to go tit for tat on that, but we try to use open-ended stuff so that it doesn't lean or guide people. And that's, I thought in the proposal, and I hope that's what you expected, but that's why we do those type of questions. Because if not, what we end up doing as a person trying to study this is you're giving them, you're pointing them in a direction. And that's why the questions are worded the way they were.
I want to make a comment, but Commissioner Kramer first.
Sure, I just had a random thought come in my head. This feels a lot like therapy. You guys have ever been in therapy? You know that things come up and it gets really uncomfortable for everyone who's involved.
And at the end of therapy, there is a discussion, right? There should be a discussion. There's a longer discussion that needs to happen. And I feel like we're just bringing all of these issues up to the surface, right? So we can look at them. It's gross, it's ugly, it hurts, it doesn't feel good. But now we're tasked with really the opportunity to address these issues. And I'm not sure how we go about this, whether it's a coffee hour, whether, how to structure that. And I think the governance piece that you mentioned is going to be invaluable, because I think we do need to learn how to do that, right? But let this all, and I'm hoping that all of you hear me and hold me to task on this, which is hold all of us to task really, is that this be a part of our discussion moving forward, a part of this therapeutic process where it's ugly and gross and we don't want to tackle these issues, but we're going to have to together, because we can't perceive the things that you're perceiving. And vice versa, you can't see the things that we see, right? When we go into special session or when we have interactions with people, you're not sure where we're coming from or why we're doing the things we're doing. And same. So I'm hoping that this will be a part of the process of bringing these issues forward and then really looking at them and working together to try to solve them. And are we gonna be perfect? Probably not even close, but can we get up from a 3.8? I hope we can. So
Thank you. Commissioner Kramer and other commissioners. This is your starting point. Yeah, I guess I never wanted, I didn't expect to be a part of setting up a therapist session, but it's what you do with it moving forward. It's what you do with it moving forward. And I do believe in the wealthiest county in the state and a beautiful area you live. There's some extremely talented people around here that can help you with this. Our organization can help too. I think you just need to show and make a commitment. To me, your easiest first step through these recommendations, that's why I threw governance out there. That's an easy first step. You've had a presentation on that. You're showing yourselves and your employees that you're starting on these things. So you have this big pile of stuff right now, which hopefully isn't insurmountable. It'll only be insurmountable if you allow it to be, okay? Take it, chunk it, move together on it and show progress. And then maybe a year from now, or whatever you determine, get somebody like us or somebody come in and say, let's do another survey. And we could do it much more quicker, but do the same type of survey and see where that 3.8 is. I believe if you show genuine concerted effort, your 3.8 is going to go only up, right? And that's important. So I'm not looking for work down the road. I'm just saying, I think that is another part of it that would be wise. I don't know, as I think Commissioner Lautner suggested every 2 weeks we could do it. I don't think you need to do that. She might've been trying to be a little sarcastic with me. I don't know, but you've got to reevaluate, but show your people that you listened and you're going to move forward with that pile. Okay. So I appreciate you getting yourself into therapy now. So
I want to thank MLI and you, John, for a very useful report, very informative report, kind of painful to receive some of it. I want to thank the staff, many staff. I want to thank the board for approving it. And I want to thank those people that got hit today by some stuff that they got hit with, that didn't want to hear it, for accepting that. And one commitment, one commissioner, we will not drop this. We will continue to focus with it. You come back in a year and we'll be in a different spot.
sounds good.
Any last comments for our consultant? Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Take care and Happy New Year, everyone. And I hope the therapy sessions going forward are wonderful. So.
Now we're at that part in our agenda where we will take public comments. You have 5 minutes. We'd love to hear from you if you want to speak. But we like the fact that you were here today. Yes. Yeah.
I might as well. Well, commissioners, I want to also thank you for taking this seriously. I want to thank the employees. I want to recognize the fact that when I started this job a year ago, it was a very different environment. I think coming into this, I only had 2 weeks of training. I was dealt with the issue of a finance director that had just quit. And some of these things will be in my evaluation process coming up in the next few weeks, but we acknowledge I just elevated you to doctor, Glenn. Commissioner Alguier addressed the issue that there was no plan for some of the challenges that the board had, taken on. And so I have to admit, I have done my best. And I want to continue to do my best, and I want to continue to work with all of you. I know that I have opportunities to grow and to communicate better. I look forward to being able to establish a plan and work with the board to create that plan so that we have a path going forward. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, to thank John, to thank the staff, and wishing this will be, again, and the clerk as well. I think we all have an opportunity to work well together going forward. So with that said, I think we do have the opportunity to make 24 an amazing year. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Deb. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Charlene. My name is Charlene Verche. I'm from Solon, and I am really very ingratiated for this happening. Being concerned without having any money involvements on my part, I'm just here out of concern and knowing a lot of people in this county, and enjoying the clerk's office and the records they keep, and going to the, all the functions that happen in this building and our law enforcement, and looking at all the moving parts. When I was raising my daughters and they were young in adolescence, they used to say, "Mom, you have to earn our respect." And I was like, what? You actually can learn respect too. No, you have to, one of them especially, you have to earn our respect. Took me several years to figure out, well, if that's the case, then you certainly haven't earned mine, So there's all these processes that go on, and a couple books come to mind when you're looking at the fear of constructive criticism and how to make this happen. Team building skills come up. When I worked at the Park Service, we had proactive educational contacts, and it's always constantly learning and changing. Everything's always learning and changing, and it's hard to work in an office. I would have a hard time working in an office building all the time. That would really bum me out. I'm lucky to be able to get outside and have all kinds of activities, right? So a couple of books though that come to mind that I have come across in the last couple of years. One is called Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck, and she talks about people who are in fixed mindsets and those who are in growth mindsets. And I'll leave it at that. And then there's another one, When Society Becomes an Addict. And there's a really short read, Dynamics, but it also refers to our enabling addictive system and the reactive system that feeds the addictive system of not changing and having the same thing. And then there's this other system going on called the living process system. So there's lots to get past that fear of the construction of criticism and, oh my God, there's a lot of fun to be had by understanding how human we all are, and how, sometimes employees who have been here longer might feel some propriety to that position, and some people who are elected officials who've been in that position for a long time may feel that they might have some invincibility in, but it's a sad thing, because when I was hearing in Dr. Skolton's report about employees feeling a sense of civil service, that was great. That was a high mark. Because that's really what it, and in inner silo interaction, that's tough stuff, when different personalities are at work. Some people are more introspective, some people are more extroverted, different personalities at work. Some people feel propriety or the sense of maternal or paternal because they're here longer and they have been working the system longer. But there are a lot of really radical changes that are going on in this world right now, considering all of the artificial intelligence and everything else that we don't even want to go into that, but we're being affected by that. We're being affected by this mass exodus from COVID and everybody wanting to be here that drove our housing prices up. We're in after 2008, we couldn't sell any homes in Leelanau County. So get lots of unpacking to do and lots of moving parts always. And but I just think that if we can think about taking money out of the equation first and trying to do the right thing and figure out what the right thing is before we put money back into the equation, that might be like sort of a different kind of formula. Take the power struggle out of it first, just to figure out what is the right thing here. Make the right decisions. And thank you, everybody. And thank you so much, Dr. John Skolton, for thank you, Shara, so much. Thank you for everybody for all their diligent help. I know everybody works really hard and I appreciate everybody's help here. And I'm going to continue to watch and hopefully we'll have a new bicycle trail system from Cedar to Lake Leelanau and Lake Leelanau to Leland.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Yes, Mr. Rabbit.
Rick Robbins, Elmwood Township. First of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Schultz and Darcy and the board or the committee there that helped present this today. I want to thank all you guys for what you, want me louder? Okay, I'll get louder. Can you hear me now? All right, first of all, I want to thank you guys for everything you've done. Everything I saw here today, it was not comfortable. First of all, I want to start off as this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a board issue. This is about people and solving the problem that's been going on for a long time.
Excuse me.
On May 11th. What's that? Oh, on May 11th, when I started this, like I said a couple weeks ago, it was supposed to be non-political. It was for the employees. I listened to those employees. It took me a long time to get the trust in those employees to where they're at today. I didn't care if the board members back then, when they tarred and feathered me that day, I didn't care whether they believed me, but I believed in those employees and I didn't stop believing them. And this has been going on for a long time. It's been 2.5 years on this since I started it. But you can go back when Mr. Janik became administrator. He had a survey. That survey was never released. According to Mr. Janik, he didn't want to because it was not a good survey. So we knew years ago. And then I started it on May 11th, 2021. And then we fought back and forth. No one wanted to take care of the employees. It was all an issue between us board members, fight after fight. It wasn't until October 21st, I believe, 21, when a commissioner or chair at that time had the balls to meet with all the employees here. That's when this all really started. Everybody started waking up. My hat's off to that commissioner. I respect him for that. And then the next day, all the employees marched in here and they cried their story out that day. And then from there, it goes to, well, nothing's happening. It goes on and earlier this year, another commissioner has a talk show here with the employees. And from there, it started with another commissioner. Finally, the ball started to get rolling. We got a problem here, but it took 2.5 years. And then we finally have him, Mr. Schultz, do his survey, which some commissioners fought against. Don't know why. And so that's 7 times. We've had at least 7 times where this has been presented to the board and nothing's been looked at until today. And I listen to all of you, and I got to respect you guys. today, that you are going to do the right thing. I've heard everybody nod their head. We got to do something. Well, I'm telling you, for the employees behind me in this building, they are tired of talk. They want to start seeing this board do the walk and do something and make this right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, Mr. McMillan.
Thanks, Ty.
You had the black eye before you walked in the room.
Yeah, that was you should see the Alabama fan.
I thought it was Ricky, his lips all kind of.
Anyways, Mike McMillan, Northport. First of all, thank you guys for the first step you took today. As you guys know, this is the first step. I'm speaking from a perspective of somebody who worked in an organization for 33 years that started off like the Wild West and then ended up being kind of what we call the right side company, where we inverted the triangle and put the employees at the top of the organization. That was not easy. So today was the first start. I would encourage you guys to be very deliberate with your decisions. It would be very simple to rush into it, make some solutions, and then move on. That's not what they're looking for. The other thing I would do is you should do it on an annual basis. We used to call it the organizational health survey. It made sense. It came, and every employee, I would think, you got 73%. I actually think that's a low number. You should be shooting a lot higher as far as employee participation in the survey. Obviously, the scores speaks for itself. But again, I would just say be very deliberate, do it on an annual basis. Should be more quantifiable than qualitative. The surveys we used to do would all the way go down to the department head or by division. And we also received all the written comments from the employees. It didn't matter what they were or what they said. We had a chance to see all of that. So again, I'm just speaking from experience. And the last thing I got, and I was on the receiving end of a lot of that negative feedback too, so I can appreciate what some of you folks are going through. And the biggest thing I learned through the whole thing, there's a reason God gave you 2 ears, 1 mouth. Okay. And it took me like 5 years to figure out that was meant for me. But after I found out, after I learned it, it worked pretty well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Any other public comment? I want to thank you for coming today. And thank you very much. Any commissioner comment? Yes.
You know, I want to say, maybe I'm repeating, but I am concerned when, let me back up from those words. When a major change is made in an organization, creation of new departments and division of one of the most important things that happens here. It takes planning. You take the action after you know, you look at workflow, you talk to people, you have a plan for how to carry forward and do it in an orderly way. The finances of our county are bedrock. Had this been planned, it would have gone better. Had there been timelines and plans. But as it was like a grenade going off. We had the simultaneous problem in that for years and years and years, there has been a policy to not pay people, which I've always decried. Acknowledging though that you know, we don't have tons of money lying, we don't have money lying around, so it's a real conundrum. I'm concerned that people still don't trust, and that worries me. And I want to understand why people don't trust. Yes, we've stumbled in creating a finance department. While we stumble, we have to make sure the books stay healthy. We have to make sure we're paying our bills and that we get through our audits So I hope people will come to trust that, yes, we've stumbled. But we do have the intention to do this. And I hope our employees can come to trust that. We do have the intention to follow through. Maybe it doesn't look like it sometimes. And we'll keep trying to do better. And I sure do, again, appreciate people's voices.
Mr. Kramer?
Just kind of piggybacking off of Bren's statement. I know very well, and I think all of you do too. Trust is definitely something you earn, right? So we have to build that. That's our responsibility. It's a two-way street, and I'm hoping that we can help facilitate more of that as we further our discussions and we really communicate what we just learned and kind of integrate all of those different new information and data that we're just seeing. And besides that, I think the greatest thing I came up with is 2 years, what about?
Anybody else? Let's go home and reflect on what we've received today.
Some of
Except for
us, some of us can go home, yes.
Looking for a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. I said immediately, wow, that's 5 to 7 hours slow.
I know.
I just got.
But how much time do
So.
Please, fine.
10 minutes.
Oh, thanks.
10-minute break.
Have a last night.
It is. It's really true.